Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to Institut français Yogyakarta. We are very pleased to host you today on the occasion of International Women's Day, celebrated worldwide every 8th of March. International Women's Day is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating women's equality and raising awareness about gender-based discrimination. For this special day, Institut français Yogyakarta has prepared a special program starting with a roundtable discussion on the topic gender-based violence in a digital society. Following the discussion, we will invite you to join us for snacks and drinks on the terrace of the cafe and to stay for the official opening of the exhibition Les Ailes des Jeux that you may have already briefly seen when entering this auditorium. This exhibition narrates the history of women who fought for their rights to make part in the international sports competition, especially the Olympic Games. Then at 6 p.m. we will screen in this auditorium the documentary film The Squad about the professional female football team of Olympique Lyonnais. And finally tomorrow we will organize a Passar, especially dedicated to female entrepreneurs of Yogyakarta on the terrace of the cafe from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You are more than welcome to attend these events. So now let's start with a roundtable on gender-based violence in a digital society. As you may know, violence against women and girls remains one of the most prevalent human rights violations in the world. Globally, an estimated 736 million women, almost 1 in 3, have been subjected to physical and or sexual violence at least once in their life. This scourge has intensified in different settings, including online spaces. Here are some figures to illustrate that point. 1 in 10 women in the European Union has experienced cyber harassment since the age of 15. In the Arab states, a regional study found that 60% of women internet users in the region had been exposed to online violence in the past year. And according to a 2016 survey by the Korean National Human Rights Commission, 85% of women had experienced hate speech online. These figures raise the following questions. What are the motivations of perpetrators of gender-based violence? How do we prevent this violence? What is specific about these new forms of online violences? What are the consequences for the victims? Is the law effective enough to protect them and repair the harm suffered? To discuss this issue, we have the great pleasure to host 3 experts today that I would like first to thank for their participation. First of all, Mrs. Marie Nastorg. Marie Nastorg is a Ph.D. student at Conservatoire National des Arts et Métiers in Paris. She received a master's in law and a degree in human sciences from Sciences Po Paris. The thesis she's now working on is entitled Individual and Collective Reparation for Discrimination in Employment toward New Systemic Solutions. She's also a legal counselor at 1948 Avocat, where she specializes in labor and non-discrimination law. She's with us today online, live from Paris, and I think we can see her on screen, maybe?
Yes, hello. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Nastorg. Welcome to Yogyakarta.
Thank you.
Second, Dr. Wening Udasmoro. Dr. Wening Udasmoro is Professor of Literature and Gender at Universitas Gadjah Mada. She received a Ph.D. in Gender Studies from the University of Geneva, Switzerland. Since 2023, she is the Vice-Rector for Education and Research of UGM. She has published many articles about gender issues, such as masculinities in literary works in Indonesia post-conflict Ambon Island, gendered dynamics of labor force participation in insurgency and ethno-religious conflict, the cases of Aceh and Ambon, the transformation of social imaginary on women's sexuality in Indonesian literature from New Order to Reformasi era, and I could quote many others, but we have only 2 hours. Good afternoon, Dr. Wening Udasmoro. And last but not least, Ratna Noviani. Ratna Noviani is a lecturer in media and cultural studies at Universitas Gadjah Mada. She received a Ph.D. in media studies from the Institut für Medienwissenschaft, Universität Bochum, Germany. She has published many articles and led research on gender studies, such as digital intimacies and the construction of social capital in heteronormative society, the study of dating app users in Indonesia, feminization of outer islands of Indonesia, feminine aestheticization and gender-gazed in tourism promotional videos of the Likupang, Bangka Belitung and Sumba Islands, online gender-based violences during the COVID-19 pandemic, a study of digital feminist activism. Good afternoon, Ibu Ratna. The format for today's session will begin with presentation by our experts, and after the 3 presentations, we will have a Q&A session with the audience. So if you have any questions about the presentation, you will be able to ask the experts during this Q&A session. So now let's start the discussion with Mrs. Marie Nastorg. Mrs. Marie Nastorg will tell us about the definition of gender-based violence according to the European and French law, an example of prevention protocol at University Sciences Po Paris, the different regimes of reparation and compensation for the victims, and how the French law adjusted to take into account the online nature of gender-based violence. I hand over to Marie. Marie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity to be with you today by video conference. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Great. So my presentation will focus on remedies, compensation and prevention of gender-based violence in a digital society. First of all, it is important to understand what gender and gender-based violence means. So, according to Diane Roman, which is a researcher and professor of public law in France, the notion of gender refers to the social and cultural constructs that differentiate women and men on the basis of their sex by attributing to them differentiated personal characteristics and social functions. The Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence of 2011, commonly known as the Istanbul Convention, defines gender as the socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities, and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for women and men. According to the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the concept of gender explains the hierarchical relationships between women and men and results in a distribution of power and rights that favors men and disadvantages women. So these definitions of gender have gradually given rise to definitions of gender-based violence or violence against women. Indeed, feminist researchers have shown a constant interest in the prevention and analysis of gender-based violence as the product of power relations between women and men. So in 1993, the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women offers the first internationally approved definition of violence against women. This is the following: any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. This definition was incorporated at the European level in the Istanbul Convention we mentioned earlier in 2011, while specifying that violence against women is a violation of human rights and a form of discrimination against women. The Istanbul Convention therefore advocates a holistic approach to eliminating violence against women, incorporating the achievement of gender equality. Even more recently, the European Parliament's directive adopted in February 2024 specified the types of violence that may be gender-based and that must be prevented, punished, and compensated as such. It encompasses offenses such as sexual violence, feminicide, hate speech, and crimes on the basis of sex, and various forms of online violence known as cyber violence. Gender-based violence and domestic violence are omnipresent throughout the European Union and are estimated to affect 1 in 3 women in the European Union. Looking at a more specific types of violence, in 2014, 1 in 10 women reported that they had been victims of sexual violence, and 1 in 20, and more than 1 in 5, have suffered domestic violence. The same pattern can be observed in France, and these definitions and figures demonstrated the systemic reality of gender-based violence, which raises the question of how it has been translated into legal terms, for example, in France. So in 2014, France ratified the Istanbul Convention, and in line with this, adopted the law for real equality between women and men in August 2014, which places violence against women in a context of gender inequality. Such progress gives hope that we can think about structural and transformative conception of violence against women. But actually, successive laws have tended to reinforce criminal law, emphasizing the idea of punishing the abusers as a form of reparation for the victims. This also means increasing penalties or creating new crimes, such as the offense of street harassment in 2019. The few preventive measures are based, for example, on the creation of an accountability program for offenders to prevent recidivism and on reducing the spread of sexist stereotypes. Protective measures have also been put in place in 2014, such as the systematic eviction of the violent spouse, which is now the rule, and the protective order for women victims of domestic violence. However, while French government adopts the international definitions of violence against women, it does not actually name gender inequalities, nor does it define gender in criminal law. Furthermore, and we'll come back to this issue in the final part of the study, cyber violence is mostly addressed by the prohibition and punishment of harassment, which fails to take into account the specific gender dimensions. These figures show the relative failures of this strategy, as gender-based violence has not decreased and the low number of complaints testify to the real difficulty of access to the law for women. France's famous survey named Virage recognizes the structural nature of violence as a form of social control, and this survey, published in November 2020, shows that there has been no decline in serious violence since 2000. Since then, a number of laws have opened up the possibility of a more global understanding of violence, particularly by taking into account the links and continuum that can exist between different spheres of life. It is the example of the law of December 2021, known as the Rickson Law. This law sets out to abolish obstacles to full and equal participation and representation of the sexes in the spheres of power in the workplace. In doing so, the law provides for measures aimed at women's financial banking autonomy and thereby recognizing domestic economic violence as a form of domination, constituting a break on equality and economic activity. Therefore, despite a growing awareness of the need to address gender-based violence on a global scale, international and European definitions and recommendations are mainly transposed in France by enhancing criminal law, sometimes at the expense of a more preventive approach. This is what we will try to address in a second section, focusing on another example of the campaign against gender-based violence, the prevention of sexist and sexual violence at university, with the example of the Sciences Po protocol. So, outside the framework of criminal law, or as a complement to it, to combat the sexual and gender-based violence that can occur in school and universities, some French institutions have set up protocols to address and prevent sexual gender-based violence. This is the case at Sciences Po, which, faced with a growing number of cases of sexual gender-based violence, has set up a working group to draw up reports on the measures and protocols in place within the institution. These measures include listening and support system for victims, as well as the disciplinary procedures. The support system are based on listening units coordinated by the person in charge of the equality mission. This unit deals with individual cases, so it receives victims and witnesses. It is also in charge of information, awareness raising, and training on sexual gender-based violence. The working group's report in 2022 highlighted some of the obstacles of its units, especially in terms of access to the law, because we observed that some students sometimes prefer to confide in other members of the school, such as association, because they are faced with the uncertain conduct to be adopted within the unit and the lack of information transmitted. The working group at Sciences Po therefore recommends increasing the visibility of contact persons on the various campuses and promoting awareness among students' associations. So, as we can see, violence against women is present in all areas of our society, both public and private. They are both the cause and consequences of gender-based discrimination, understood in Europe, in European and French legal system as a breach of equality between women and men, while the social sciences and international organizations readily acknowledge the causal link between gender-based discrimination and violence against women. The legal tools for preventing and punishing it differ in many respects. It is for this reason that it seems relevant to focus in a third part on the prevention and correction of discrimination, especially in employment, which invites a more systemic reflection than the treatment of violence, which tends to revolve around the criminal response. So, such a perspective is interesting as it helps us to understand the importance of tackling gender discrimination in order to address violence. Indeed, violence and discrimination appear to be two sides of the same coin. This approach establishes a conceptual link between violence against women and discrimination based on gender. However, their legal regimes are resolutely different. From this point of view, mechanisms for repairing discrimination and discriminatory harassment in the workplace can provide perspectives for prevention of gender-based violence by emphasizing its systemic nature. In France, non-discrimination law has developed mainly through labor law, which has played a leading role. Although there are also some provisions in criminal law. So the prohibition of discrimination is defined as differences in treatment based on certain number of prohibited criteria in law, such as gender, origin, or age. Its evolution has been marked by the transposition of European rules and the case law of the European Court of Human Rights. Since 2008, France, like the European Union, has made a distinction between direct discrimination, which is a difference in treatment, and indirect discrimination, which is a difference in the effect of treatment for certain categories of people. For example, in France, refusing to hire a woman constitutes a direct discrimination, but apparently neutral measures, such as, for example, bonuses based on time at work, constitute indirect discrimination for women because they are more likely to work part-time, for example. So the mechanism for compensating discrimination and harassment are based on the French adage of full compensation for damage and can be broken down into different types of damage. So there are financial damage, for example, caused by pay inequalities. There are moral damages resulting from discriminatory treatment and harassment, or damages for employer failures, such as violations of health and safety obligations. But beyond individual discrimination, reparation can concern and encompass collective and systemic discrimination in a logic of dissuasive sanction or positive obligation. To understand this, a comparative perspective with Canadian law is of interest. Indeed, systemic discrimination is defined by French non-discrimination lawyer Emmanuel Boussard-Viridia as the accumulation of direct and indirect discrimination resulting from a system which, in its operation, itself produces discrimination against a group. These definitions help us to understand the structural links between systemic discrimination in employment and in other spheres of life and gender-based violence. As a result, the solutions proposed in the face of systemic discrimination inspire the prevention of gender-based violence. So, in Canada, reparation and compensation for discrimination takes into account both the systemic and specific aspects of gender-based violence and gender-based discrimination, based on both the seriousness of the facts and the victim's feelings, such as humiliation, loss of self-esteem, or loss of confidence. Canadian researcher Colin Shepard, for example, calls for us to go beyond the search for reparation in the context of individual complaints and to give priority to class action mechanism. This notion of class action echoes with the consecration in France of the group action, which is preventive in nature and characterize procedural tools for dealing with systemic discrimination, making it possible to both sanction discrimination and prevent it in the future. Systemic discriminatory situation cannot therefore be analyzed without taking into account the idea of a continuum and thus both past and future discrimination. The aim is to break down the causal links between past inequalities and present and future discrimination, enabling us to move beyond a punitive approach. Prevention, like reparation, is a response to the discriminatory system. The benefits of these more structural visions of discrimination will enable us to think in terms of inclusion and build systemic solutions to multiple forms of discrimination. This conceptual and legal framework enables us to raise the question of prevention and reparation for gender-based cyber violence. In the last part. So, according to Professor Isabelle R. and Aurélie Olivesi in France, cyber violence is both a specific form of online violence and a part of the continuum of gender-based violence and discrimination. In other words, they need to be analyzed at the constitution and perpetuation of the system of domination in a gender space to think about this problem in all its complexity and make it easier to deal with in face with the victim's feelings. So, in 2019, the French government identified several types of situations that are close to cyber violence. It is, for example, the phenomena of happy slapping, which is the fact, which is a group lynching followed by publication of a video on a website. It also can be spreading rumors by telephone or on the internet, creating a group, page, or false profile against a certain person. And as we mentioned at the start of the study, citing the European Directive of February 2014, the majority of victims of these types of behaviors are women or people from the LGBT community. Yet, most policies to combat cyber violence propose technical and legal solutions without always placing this phenomena within the social framework of more general discrimination. In response to this, associations such as Feminists Against Cyber Harassment in France have distinguished between cyber violence that is specific to the web, for example, cyber stalking, computer attacks, and that which is part of the continuum of offline violence, such as, for example, forced housing, or the online variations of domestic violence, for example, cyber control, cyber harassment, cyber surveillance, which brings to light actually the existing continuum between online and offline violence, so between the private and the public space. Cyberspace is understood as both a media space, creating violence, but also a public space, a place of gender performativity, a place of socialization and expression. This dual dimension explains why cyberspace can both create conditions of agency for women and conditions of vulnerability. Indeed, cyberspace is a federating space, for example, for new feminist discourses. However, just as in the public space we newly forced cyberspace, women's place is not taken for granted. Women's position in public space can engender a certain vulnerability, which here is not personal but a social characteristics. Gender vulnerability in cyberspace must be seen as the counterpart to the gender agency enabled by the same cyberspace. This is why, for example, in France, the plaintiffs in recent cyber harassment trials include, for example, committed journalists, feminist activists, or a teenager who has spoken about her homosexuality. Finally, to conclude, online social networks must be seen as a new legal space, open to pre-existing rules, just as the internet in general. And several forms of cyber violence are associated with offenses under French criminal law, such as moral harassment, public defamation and insults, and incitement to racial hatred. However, in the context of social networking and cyber violence, responsibility is diluted by anonymity or pseudo-anonymity, which means that victims are often obliged to lodge a complaint against someone they don't know. The proceedings are then invisible before small courts, with the victims not all at the center of them, and therefore sometimes unable to open up to a real path to reparation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marie of American Reporter. Thank you so much for this comprehensive insight of gender-based discrimination in France and the legal answer to it. So now, let's turn the floor over to Dr. Wening Udasmoro. Dr. Wening Udasmoro will talk about sexual violences on campuses, the new forms of sexual violence triggered by the digitalization of society, the perpetrator's motivations, and how to prevent this violence.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? I hope that all of you are doing well. So thank you for coming, and today, as requested by Ify, I will present my presentation here. Maybe I can stand up to make it easier to read. Gender-based violence and digital society. Oh, sini. Oh, oke. Ini sebelah sini. Yang mana ini? I will focus my presentation on sexual violence at campus. Why? Because we know that the question of sexual violence on campus in Indonesia is an iceberg phenomena, which means that most of cases are unreported. There are a lot of cases, but most of cases are unreported. And although we have been in Indonesia for more than 78 years, but it was only in 2020 there is the first regulation in Indonesia, and this regulation was created by Gadjah Mada. So the state didn't have the regulation on sexual violence at campus, and it was Gadjah Mada first time in 2020 created the regulation on sexual violence. And then after that, 1 year later, the Minister of Education finally create also a new regulation on sexual violence in 2021. And after that, 1 year later, in 2022, so just 2 years ago, all of the universities in Indonesia, they must have or they must implement this new regulation on sexual violence. Okay. Ya. Bantu. Ya. Ya, next saya bilang next ya. Okay. And now we may ask question. The common reason for ignoring the case of sexual violence at campus. Certain sexual violence conduct are considered common to be practiced, in the society. So it's common, but no one aware that this is called sexual violence. And the second one, there is also preservation of the status quo, not talking about it. It is a taboo. Talking about sexual violence. That's why a lot of people, they don't want to speak up, because they think when they speak up, it's taboo. I don't want to talk about it. It is maybe people will not like it, etc. And then the cases are done by the important persons. This is a question of imbalance of power, and the cases are considered wasting the energy of the administration because of the long process involving also psychological burdens. So people, many of them, they try to avoid talking about this. Next. And then what is the importance of having the regulation? This makes easier for university process, because without any regulation, how? When there is someone who want to admit that she or he became the victim of violence. If there's no mechanism, there's no system, there's no regulation. So this regulation make university easier to process, and then the mechanism then well established in the society and the university. But which is very important is that the first thing to do is to protect the victims. If there is victim who admit that she or he become the victim of sexual violence, the first thing to do by the team should think about the psychological aspects of the victims. So the emergence of this regulation encouraged then a lot of victims to admit or to speak up. We started in 2000. I'm with Ratna as the team inti of this, Satgas, ya, Satuan Tugas in Gadjah Mada. Now we have around 80 cases to be solved only in 2 years. Yeah. Before there's no, a lot of people admit like that. They're afraid. Yeah. They're afraid that people will ignore, or people will not take into account. Yeah. They speak up when they speak up. And now we talk about the digital sexual violence. Yeah. There is a transformation now of physical sexual violence into digital sexual violence. There are more and more cases related to digital sexual violence. Online-based sexual violence, we remember COVID-19. People think that when there is a COVID-19, everyone is at home, campuses are closed. People think there's no sexual violence. On the contrary, yeah, sexual violence appeared and is becoming digital. Yeah. So we see the report from National Women Crisis Center. There was an increase of cases of sexual violence, and more than 37% of cases were online. Yeah. Terus, but why online sexual violence? Yeah. This is a question of tradition in many society. Yeah, that the habit of viewing women's body and sexuality as social property. We don't realize that our body and sexuality is becoming a social property. Yeah, we think that, yeah, this is my body, but in reality our body sometimes is regulated by the society. And especially, yeah, the property of women's body and sexuality as a social property. For instance, that the body of women especially belong to men, starting from the father. When you are not married, so you belong to your father. But then when you are already married, you belong to your husband. This is for women, yeah. So you follow what your husband said. Oh, you must do this one. Your hair must be red. Your hair must be green, etc. And then after that, men's collective, yeah, men's collective. The collective also creates a social pressure related to women's body and sexuality. So this view give rise to the habit of treating women's bodies and sexuality according to the desire of men. One of the desire that are becoming common is through sexual violence online, yeah, online sexual violence. And what are the forms? This is the forms that we found in those cases, yeah, happening in Universitas Gadjah Mada. This is the empirical data I got from there, because I was becoming the team of several 2 years, something like that, treating, yeah, solving the problem of sexual violence at campus. The first is sexual comments. I think all of you later we will see what is that. Sexual post, threat, doxing, cyber stalking, sexual slander. Okay, let's see the first one. Sexual comments. In almost WhatsApp group, I think. Yeah, maybe you try to remember also. Sexual comments always appear. Yeah, done mostly by men with the excuse that, oh, this is a joke. This is just a joke, you know. And it's often said that it's a common thing in our society. For instance, your friends comment something on the body of women and, oh, this is just a joke. It's common in our society. I don't get angry or something like that, yeah? And then comments are also done individually, and usually it's related to the social hierarchy in the society. Someone, yeah, with a higher social structure will do more this sexual comments. For instance, here, lecturer comments to students, senior comments to junior, etc. Sexual post. This is very kekinian, yeah, we said in Indonesia. It's nowadays visual culture is a new euphoria in Indonesia. Everyone wants to use TikTok, use YouTube, etc. Everyone want to share video, want to edit photo, etc. And sexual violence is often carried out through posting the form of photos and video. Many cases, for instance, even done by the close friends, by the members, yeah, of a groups, yeah. For instance, boyfriends, partners, ex-girlfriends, two ex-girlfriends, yeah, husband to ex-wife, etc. Yeah. So the aim is to dominate women by spreading what society considers as disgrace. Naked bodies, sexual activity is in our society considered sometimes as disgrace. Yeah. So this is a way to dominate women. Yeah. Hijacking women's life to obey their perpetrators' will. Yeah. For instance. For not to be left in the relationship, yeah. So women must obey, for instance, boyfriend or the partners. Yeah. Threat, yeah, it is common in our media, social media, for women to obey the wishes of the man, for instance. Yeah. Here, if we see in many different cases, women they are forced to send the photo, the naked photo. We see nearly every day, yeah, in the newspaper, yeah, how women are forced by boyfriend or new boyfriend she met in online, yeah, online relationship, and then she has to post the photo, the video, but naked, yeah. And then after that, men will use that one to force women to do all of the things that men want. If you don't give me money, and then I will share your naked photo. Yeah, it is happen also in relationship between a man and a woman. Yeah, in campus area. Okay, next, doxing. Yeah, what is doxing? Yeah, revealing someone's information without the permission of that person. Yeah, the use of women's information. Yeah, someone steal your information and then share the information of that person. For instance, yeah, woman's body, sexuality becoming mockery. For instance, I see, for instance, in WhatsApp group a lot of edit of photo using someone's woman's body and sexuality. I'm sure that one who edited photo do not have permission, for instance, from that person. Yeah, for instance, to edit, creating or with the body with a big breast, and he edit that big breast. It's without permission, yeah, of the people. But then after that, he spread to everyone. The other thing is cyber stalking. This is stalking of women through media. Someone try to know who are you, yeah, very, very deeply, and then you know, this is usually involve power relation. For instance, lecturer in the classroom. Who is that you're using online? Or who is that girl looks very, very beautiful, and then try to, you know, to know that girl, yeah. Through media, having this photo of that girl, etc. It happened, yeah, in campus situation of sexual violence. Sending chat, admiring of students, admiring of colleague, yeah, during Zoom meeting, etc. The last one is sexual slander. What is sexual slander? Fitnah seksual, yeah. So spreading a gossip or false information about women's body and sexuality, and then spread it to a lot of people. For instance, a man said all of his friends, "Oh, I made love with that woman," something like that. I made love with that woman many times, you know, but he didn't do that in fact. And what happened? So that woman became very, very angry, he became very sad. And even in several cases, she had also to be sent to hospital, yeah, for mental health problem. Because I'm not like that. And he told everyone that I was doing sexual relationship with him. And that woman, she had a husband, you know. So then she has problem with the husband because of this sexual slander from someone else. Yeah. So the law started to be nationally practiced. Yeah. We know our university already implement this law, but the problem is that how is the concrete implementation? Yeah. Later we can continue, yeah, discussing about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wening Udasmoro, to share your research, based on concrete facts. So thank you so much. Now let's hear from Ibu Ratna Noviani. Ibu Ratna Noviani will tell us about gender-based violence in the digital space. You can take a mic and we'll screen your presentation.
Thank you so much, François. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you also to Wening and also Mary for the insightful presentation. So we'll be waiting for the... Okay, I'd like to add some point to discuss today. I'd like to focus on the topic of gender-based violence in the digital space. I think Bu Wening already explained detail about the type of the online gender-based violence, but I'd like to add some more data related to that. When we talk about the digital space, I think it is something that we relate every day because we cannot live without our smartphone, right? And we also have the social media accounts, many, I think. Mas Cite, how many social media accounts do you have? Banyak banget, so many. So I think we are very active in our many social media accounts, so that's why it also gives, the potentials to increase the threats of the act of violence. Okay, when we heard after having talked from Mbak Wening and also Mbak Mary, we see that there is the persistence of gender-based violence and sexual violence in the patriarchal society. It happened not only in Indonesia, but also in France and also many countries, I think, all over the world. And I think it also indicated by the rising number of the violent acts. And we can see that it happens everywhere, like what Mbak Mary said in the workplace, Mbak Wening already mentioned also at campuses and educational space, so both in our private and also public domains that the violence also can happen. And who are the victims actually? If we refer to the data from the World Health Organization report in 2023, it stated that globally almost 1 in 3 women experience physical and or sexual violence in their lifetime. So although we cannot have a blind eye that maybe men also become the victim of this gender-based violence, but the fact that most of the studies show that women actually is still the main target of this gender-based violence and also sexual violence, and also the minorities, gender and sexual minorities, the non-binary. And who are the perpetrators? So, report from the World Health Organization also stated mostly by an intimate partner. So the perpetrators actually not come far from us, but come from the close surroundings, come from the people who maybe have a very close ties with us, with our family sometimes, yeah? So it's very dangerous. So the threat is actually in front of our door. Yeah, or that's become our big concern. And also when we talk about the digital society, like I said, that we cannot live without our smartphone now. So there is an increasing number of violent threats in the digital space, usually from the social media platforms, like already explained by Wening, because social media platform, I think, is the cheapest, the easiest way to access. So we can do anything there, yeah, to have fun, but sometimes also we make a gossip there, make a bad comment also through the social media. So when we talk about the gender-based violence in the digital society, I think the keyword is the digital platform. Because when we enter the digital society, it's actually marked by the use of the digital technology in the digital platform. But Mary actually in her presentation already said that actually there is like a double-edged sword, yeah, like half of Janus face. Because when we talk about the digital platform, we can see that the digital platform can be the tools inside of violence. But at the same time, we can also use the digital platform as tools inside of speaking out. Like victims, for example, if they don't get attention because they have the case of violence, then they come to the social media. They talk, they speak out about the case, and then people get attention, give attention to her. Yeah, and then after that we have a collective power to guide the case. So when we talk about the digital platform as the tools inside of the violence, then it becomes the fertile ground. Yeah, and with the proliferation of online gender-based violence occur there. So like the cyber stalking, cyber bullying, and then the sextortion, there are many types. I think that already, some of them already explained by Wening. And we also use the digital platform to reproduce what happened in our offline. You know, like in the offline space, there are also many phenomena of violent acts, and then we bring it and make a gossip about that sometimes in the digital platform, and then there is an amplification of the long-standing problem of offline gender-based violence. So I will say that there is an interconnection actually between the offline and online gender-based violence. So when we talk about the other side, that we can use digital platform, for example, for the activism to combat the gender-based violence, then we can see that, like what I said, that the digital platform can facilitate the victims to speak out and amplify their voice online. And then we also can build the collective power in solidarity. And together then we guide the case, yeah, in order to make the justice system work. Sometimes our justice system not work, yeah, and then we use the social media to force them. And then and we compare these two ages, yeah, we compare these two phases. Yeah, it seems that the two S and side of violence then grow faster. Then if we use, compared to when we use the digital platform as the space for the digital activism. So we can say that actually the digital platform, yeah, have proven that it's not a safe environment, not yet safe, for the women and also for the gender and sexual minorities. So if we see the rising number of the case of online gender-based, we can see, for example, from the data which presented by the National Commission on Violence Against Women in the annual report 2023, you can see here that more than 1,500 cases, more than them. Yeah, it's only in the online gender-based. Yeah, only in 2023. So the similar case also shown by the report from Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network, or SafeNet. It's also shown that there are more than 1,000 cases which is reported to the SafeNet. And this number actually increased as we compare to the previous year in 2022 by 33.65%. So it getting increased and increased from year to year. And who are the victims? Like I said, that women actually still the main target of the online gender-based violence. Like here, for example, from the data of reported victims in the third quarter of 2023, from July to September, yeah, received by SafeNet, we can see that women still the dominant, yeah, and then men also become the victims, and we also can see the unidentified gender. But it doesn't mean, although only two people there, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, yeah, to the gender and sexual minorities. It could be that maybe they still reluctant to report, or maybe they feel afraid if they report, and then people will don't care about their what happened to them. And also from the age, the victim age range from 12 until 25 years old. So the young people actually most at risk to experiencing online gender-based violence, maybe because young people use the digital technology more than the older people. And then and we see here the victim age between 12 to 17 years old, the violence that they experience actually through the online games, through the social media platform, and also chatting application. Okay. And here also the data about the types of the online gender-based violence that received by SafeNet. You can see that the first one, the most, violence that experienced by the victims is the image-based sexual abuse, like what Wening already said, that digital technology, digital society, it's colored by the visual culture. So image here play a very significant role. And the second one is the non-consensual intimate images, like what happened to Rebecca Klopper, I think, ikutin nggak? Yeah, Rebecca Klopper is M.Si. And also the sextortion, it's kind of sexual blackmail, through the online media. So I think there are many types, and I believe that it developed from year to year. Like digital space is actually the open space. People also try to experiment sometimes, to do any act of violence, and then there are many new type, of online gender-based violence. Like for example, the deepfake. Have you ever heard about that? Yeah, the deepfake. They can generate the pornographic image or videos with the face of the ordinary people like us, without our consent. Yeah, it's very, very dangerous. So be careful. Don't post any photos of you, many, in social media, because there is a possibility to get used by people with the deepfake. And also when we use the digital technology, sometimes we also see that there is an attempt to kind of romanticizing the toxic relationships and also gender-based violence. For example, there are many films and also serial drama series from Korea or maybe from Thailand, BL, Boys Love. There are also many, the content actually represent the toxic relationship, represent the gender-based violence. But it's problematic, but it's popular. There are popularity of films and drama series which represent the toxic relationship. But it's problematic but popular. Why? Because the violence itself are depicted in a subtle way. It looks normal. The actors are so cute, so it's okay. So there are many culture of excuses, many culture of normalization. So then people talk about it in the social media platform, and then with the hashtag, and then making memes of it. It become more and more popular, become the trending topic, but not the problematic side, the popularity. So it's this is, for example, maybe you've ever watched some of this film or drama series, like Nevertheless, for example. That boy, love to ghosting the girlfriend, sometimes disappear, but suddenly come with chocolate, with flowers, and then suddenly disappear again, So there is the normalizing of violent acts, in the effort to romanticizing the toxic relationship, considered as challenging, motivating, and if you can stand in that position, it's rewarding. You can be a strong person, it's okay, something like that. So, if we talk about the perpetrators, if we focus on the gender-based violence in the digital space, so we can see that the perpetrators is not single. It's always layered and multiplied. So maybe this is the depiction. So originally, there is someone there, in the middle, who maybe pose the naked, non-consensual image, and then the other people then making memes, doxing, and then repost, reshare. You do the reshare is you take a part as a perpetrator actually, So the perpetrator there in the middle is the first, or I would call it the primary perpetrator. This is the individual who is originally committed to a violent act. But in the other, we can identify anyone who is the second, who is the third, because you do it parallel, together. So it becomes many layers, of the perpetrators. Why people so easy to take a part to be perpetrators? Because in the social media, like Mbak Mary already mentioned also, that there are anonymity. People can hide their real identity. And then you can be invisible. Then you can do hit and run, I will post some bad comment and then I just run. But not the other way around for the victims. So I said that we cannot live without our smartphone. So when the violence then occur in our smartphone, it's very invasive. We cannot run. There is no place to run anymore because you can get, for example, the bad comment in the middle of the night. So it's not fair for the victim. So when we talk about the online and offline violence, so I think we cannot separate it. We cannot isolate these two, from one another, because actually there is an interconnection. So for example, when there is a violence act in the online or digital space, the impact, then we bring it into our offline. Like for example, from Wening said that now there is a transformation from physical to non-physical violence, but the impact can be very physical too. Like for example, when you get harassed and you get depressed and then you self-harm, so physical also there. And also when we talk about the violence in the offline space, we bring it into digital space. We talk a lot about it. We doxing the victim sometimes. So I think there is amplify one to another. So why this online and offline violence cannot be spirited one to another? Because I think the root is just the same. Like Wening already underlined also that there is the gender inequality in our society. It's still a big problem. And also discrimination against women and minorities, as already explained by Mbak Mary. And there are structural problems, the power imbalance in a society. It exists until now. So the second one is because there's a long-standing problem of sexism and misogyny. It's about mindset. Sometimes we know that we cannot be sexist, but sometimes, unconsciously, you post something which objectifies, people. So I think that's the problem with our mindset. So there is also the culture of normalization. There is also culture of excuses. So the last one, I think, the inadequate legal procedures and poor law enforcement. I don't know in France, but in Indonesia it mostly happen, because sometimes we have actually a very good law, like for example law of the sexual violence. We already have that in 2022, but the problem in the implementation of it. Why? Because there is no technical adjustment which is constructed, to complement the legal procedures. So there is also gender insensitivities among the police and also the judicial officer. Like for example, the victim of domestic violence and then sent home to the husband. So it means that sent home to the enemy. Because the officer, the judicial officers doesn't have the gender awareness. So I think that's some additional point that I add to our discussion today, but I also have to give questions to Wening, not the other way around, Wening cannot give me question, and also to Mbak Mary, but also the question for both, what is the biggest challenge actually to combat gender-based violence in the digital society? And for Mbak Mary, does the French government have a particular policy in place to address the proliferation of online gender-based violence and the use of artificial intelligence technology. And for Maune, what is the primary challenge in promoting awareness of gender equality and gender justice in campus? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ibu Ratna and Noviani. Now maybe I invite speakers to join us. Yeah, I wouldn't say on stage, but almost. Oh, no. Okay, as you wish. Okay, so how shall we proceed? Are we answering the question now?
Up to you.
Up to me, okay. It's a huge responsibility. Maybe, I'm not sure if Mary can see the screen, I think no. So, maybe, sorry? Okay, you saw the question, Mary?
I didn't catch the question, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I will repeat for you. So does the French government have a particular policy in place to address the proliferation of online gender-based violence and the use of artificial intelligence technology? Wow, it's a hectic question. All the best. Is it okay if shall I repeat?
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
Thank you. Should I answer now?
Yeah, if you're ready, or maybe we can switch to another question, as you wish. Spontaneously.
No. I think it's. I'm not aware of a policy that would include all those issues. But actually, the subject of cyber violence and is more and more discussed, but more like a public interest issue, especially with the directive from February 2024, which for the first time mentioned the cyber violence as a form of gender-based violence. So if it has been recognized at the European scales, it means that it should be something that is going to happen in French policies. But for the moment, I think there is no such policy. The way cyber violence is addressed today in France is through other types of offenses. For example, cyber harassment is prohibited by criminal law in France, but the same way harassment or moral harassment is prohibited. It's the same law actually, just specified that harassment is prohibited also online. So it's not a special policy, but it's more of a modification of a current law about harassment. So maybe with the European directive, we will see soon some change about that, and a law that could take into account the specificities of gender-based cyber violence.
Okay, any reaction? Maybe what about the Indonesian law? I don't know if you have legal expert tonight in the audience. Yeah.
Yes, what I got from the answer from Mary, that there's modifications actually that done by the French government in order to face the increasing number of the online gender-based violence, because they already consider that the cyber violence as also included in the criminal law, I think. Yeah. In Indonesia, I think we actually have the law of electronic and informations and transactions, but it can be very problematic because sometimes it's used to victimize the victims. Sometimes the victims try to make a report, and then the perpetrators usually have more power from the victims, and they use the same law, which actually can be the law which can protect the victims, but then become the other way around. It's become our big concern.
Yeah, I think related to the law in Indonesia, the one thing about Indonesia is there is a law, but the law has never been applied in direction to the law. You know, it's the only problem, and a lot of people they know about it, so they try to make shortcut in order to not to follow the law. There are so many ways not to follow the law. And in Indonesia, sometimes it's okay. We don't follow the law. This is the problem in Indonesia.
I think in France too. Maybe I'm not an expert, but we hear regularly in the news. You know, some women with victim of violence go to file a complaint at the police station and have not been properly listened, and their complaint has not been taken seriously. And sometimes there was dramatic consequences to this. So I think it's a general problem, not only in Indonesia. Yeah. Okay. Maybe let's move to another question. If we can come back to the question page.
The gender, I think.
Or maybe you remember, Wening, the question for you.
I think the challenge, to implement the gender. In promoting awareness of gender. Yeah. It's also another problem because when we talk about the gender awareness, sometimes people think that I'm already thinking using gender perspective. But when we look at, maybe we can refer to one of the theory of Laura Mulvey called masculinization of the viewer. Yeah. That our view is masculinized, and we don't realize that our view is masculinized. So women also, they have to follow the view of the masculine. For instance, what that means by a beautiful woman. Beautiful woman means this. And this is man's creation, but women also follow or agree with this creation. So this is the masculinization of the viewer. And in many different sexual, posting, when women, they are treated badly in this WhatsApp group or, in this post, women also laugh because they follow this masculinization of the viewer. So I think our problem is this kind of awareness where sensitivity toward positionality to the victim is very low, because people think that it's just normal. Oh, why you laugh when a woman is treated badly in this in the social media, but everyone is doing it, so it's normal. So it's becoming common sense, and this common sense is becoming more dangerous now, because everyone is doing it through media, and we imagine how many million of people having this kind of circular information. One person do this to people and they spread to everyone in Indonesia, and people laugh on that situation, So this is like berjamaah in bahasa Indonesia. What is it? Like doing sexual violence using virtual, using language, but this is very collective, and it's very difficult to stop. I think this is related also to the first question. The challenge to combat gender-based violence in digital society is because of the spread of this information are very, very massive, and a lot of people, they don't realize that what they do is putting someone in in a difficult situation, putting them as victim of violence. It's like that. So I think how to do it to solve this problem, like us today, doing this kind of conversation, doing maybe when you post in your Instagram, give inspiration to people to avoid this kind of thing. But I think it's becoming difficult because it's massive now in Indonesia.
I'm curious, are the children at school, is there prevention at school? I mean, are the school students aware of the dangers of posting personal information, photos, pictures online? Is there education to this?
Not really, I will do it. Not really. Like we have a lot of information to report there. For instance, in Gadjah Mada University, spread all of the give information to all of the students that when all of the civitas academica that if you have problem related to sexual violence, report to this, and we have also a lot of program, yeah, to avoid this kind of activities. For instance, is in relationship, avoiding a toxic relationship, for instance. Yeah. It's working, but also I think it's still limited. You know, still limited. The audience are still limited.
Okay. Let's now move to the Q&A session with the audience. Do we have some questions? Okay, coming.
Okay, thank you. My name is Isti. I want to ask to Miss Mary. My question is that patriarchy is the biggest problem in Indonesia for women movement. So I want to ask to Miss Mary, what about in France? Because in France, I hope there is better situation. But I don't know, that's why I ask you. And the second, for Wening, is there any curriculum education about sexual violence in campus? Formally, I mean, as much as religion education. And the third, for Ratna. How do you practice to be aware from being victim of only gender-based violence? Your best practice maybe can inspire us. Thank you.
Maybe we'll start with Mary. Mary, did you hear the question, or do we need to repeat it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was a bit hard to hear. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it was about. Can you repeat the question about patriarchal society in France?
Yeah. Hi, Mary. I want to ask you about patriarchy situation in France. Can you maybe just talk about this in France? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I think it's internationally common known issue, but with specificities according to the country, I guess. So in France, the situation is, as we said, there are some laws, there are some protections, there are some fights against the situation of patriarchy. For example, at a constitutional level in Europe and in France, and the laws are more and more progressive on the subject, because they take into account the definition of gender, and there are some progress in this way, but actually there is a difference between what we called formal law and the reality, like formal equality and the reality of equality, and we theorize that a lot in France, because despite the laws, and that was what we were saying. But despite the laws that are some good laws in some ways. There's really the problem of access to laws for victims, the complaints were not always taken by the government forces, and the fact that despite these laws that are reaching for formal equality, they are not really a real equality between men and women in France.
True. Thank you, Mary. Maybe Ratna would like to answer?
Thank you, M.Si. So, maybe I will say one thing. Me as part of the media and culture studies, one important thing is to be suudon. Suudon apa bahasa Inggrisnya ya? To have a prejudice of anything, yeah. Like because we learned about the critical paradigm, so there is a mindset that we live actually in the imbalanced power relations, and sometimes the power actually operated not only repressive in a repressive way, but also very hegemonic. And sometimes we take a part in that power relations without our consciousness. So the critical paradigm then teaches us to be, have the self-criticism, whether I am a victim, and then I do nothing as a victim, and I accept it, and I don't realize that I became a victim, or maybe we actually part of the perpetrators. So that's why we have to be criticized ourselves first. But then if you train to be there, believe me, it's very intoxicating. Because you cannot see anything as neutral anymore, because you always have the prejudice of anything. So I think it works actually, at least for me it works, when we see the posting, the many posts in the social media, and then we get very curious, and then have a prejudice, the suudon with the choice of the visual, with the choice of the words. Why the relation like that? Why the positions of the men in this side, not on the other side? Something like that. So maybe you can practice it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question? Yeah?
Still one.
Ah, sorry. I forgot about it. Sorry.
Yeah, there is a course on sexual violence. So this is in mode of MOOC, massive online course, yeah, and it's open for everyone. And this course is becoming the third rank taken by students. Yeah, so last semester there were around 5,000 students took these classes from all over Indonesia. So it's not only for students of Gadjah Mada, but it's open for everyone. Yeah, and there is subtitle also in English. Yeah, all of the MOC in UGM is subtitle in English, so everyone can take it. So the title is Sexual Violence. The lecturer is Ibu Sri Wiyanti Ediono, the former Komnas Perempuan. Yeah.
Okay, any question? Yeah? Okay. You'll be next.
Okay, thank you for the time. I just want to ask for what is preventive action that we can deal with all of issue. Maybe Bu Ratna just said, please minimize to post your face to avoid the deep fake, and maybe there is others preventive action that we can take for deal to those all the issue that we discussed today. Maybe that's my question.
Okay, Mas Haikal, thank you for the question. So maybe I will focus on the digital space, yeah. What should we do actually to prevent that? I think the first thing is that we have to know the mechanism of the digital platform, how they work. Because sometimes we don't understand, we just use that. But actually we enter, like in the like a jungle with many traps in there. You know, like we do the post and then we share anything there. It seems that we have the freedom to do that, but actually we submit to the procedures which is applied by the platform. For example, like the privacy. Anything that you share through the social media actually become, you know, like datafication as a data, you know, like recorded and will be there forever, like lifetime, like what we call the digital footprint, yeah, the digital footprint will be last forever. So I think that's one thing, the platform mechanism that we should realize. So be careful in using the platform because anything you do there become the data. It become actually this resource for the capitalists, the platform capitalism, to actually commodify your data, one thing, and the other thing that anybody who can use your data, and you don't know who will do that, because you already submit your data there, voluntarily, you know, like that's very dangerous. So that's why you have to always think what I will share to other people, because the privacy, I think, is the biggest issue right now when we talk about the digital platform. So sometimes people, you know, like because you have the sense of freedom to do anything, and then you don't think anymore, I will share anything, my privacy, my private life, but then you don't know how people will use the data from you. It's very dangerous, I think. That maybe, so we become very reflective on what we do. I think maybe that's one point that I will say.
Continuing the last sentence of Ibu Ratna about reflection, yeah, that you have to reflect. We have to, what it means by suuzon. We need to not to believe everything. In media, now I tend to think this is true, or this is not true. Sometimes I'm a bit between the reality and the fictions. It's combined together. And if you are not careful, so we think this is the truth, but this is the hybrid between reality and fiction. Like today, for instance, there is a new website, fake website imitating UGM. Yeah, this is a fake website, and if we are not careful, this people use this website, I think, to manipulate. Yeah, for instance, because now is a time for the students' intake. So this, you know, usually people use this website to make money from people. You know, oh, your child can be accepted, but they use this fake website. Yeah, so must be careful in you know, related to website, related to virtual, related to digital. Yeah, so we have to literate ourselves. Yeah? Not to trust everyone in this, you know, this world of this jungle of digital.
Marie, vous vouliez compléter peut-être?
I think I think it was very complete.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now next question. We had a question here, I think.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Moderator, Ibu Wening, Ibu Ratna, and Miss Mary. My name is Vita. I'm a student. Well, I personally think that I am a bit upset about this patriarchal society. But since I'm a student and researcher, I have to put aside the emotional feeling like this. Since recently, I have witnessed some posts in Instagram profile. They speak up about the the patriarchal society here. That is not only impact on women but also as men. And this the speaker is man who tells about their bad experience when they are kids, and then when they are now grown up, they kind of get gaslighting experience, and then because they have to perform like a normal real man, and it turns out that this speaker who come out as confidently speaking out in the social media is turned out to be these kind of LGBTQ profiles. While the real men, they have this kind of what is it? Like psychological side. They actually doesn't dare to speak out because they think that real men cannot speak like that. They have to put aside their feelings. Real men cannot show, cannot express their feelings. So the thing is that the men who speak up is actually considered as not real men, but they are actually part of the LGBTQ profile, something like that. But this is whether this is unfortunate or fortunate. And the second thought is that not only women, I know that this is the dominance of women get the violence, but of course as this patriarchal society, the violence, harassment is not only for women but also for men. For example, Prince Martin, like in from Arab, and they get comment from these women like, oh, my woman's womb is getting warm because I see you and you're so good looking or something like that. So I think I just know what is your thought about this kind of thing. I think that you also noticed about this, but in this talk you didn't mention about this. Women violent did the violence against men as well. So this is my the two thoughts of me, and I want to all of the speakers here. I just curious about the response and the feedback from this background profile. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to answer first? Yes, Ibu Ratna.
Mbak Vita, thank you so much for the questions. Yes, you're right that when we talk about patriarchal, people then seems to simplify it's just about women who, because in the patriarchal society, women become the subordinate side, yeah, and the subordinate position, and then sometimes we forget that actually patriarchal society also gives burdens to men, yeah, because masculinity is not single. There are masculinities. There are also the hegemonic masculinities where you say that, oh, men should be very strong, you cannot cry, you cannot speak out anything, it means that you're weak. And then as we see that, because there are also differences of men, there are also many kind of masculinities. I think that's the expertise from Wening. She will explain about that. And also I agree with you. There are many posts in social media which actually also, like when men, for example, express their feeling, and then they also get bullied, get harassed because you're men, please don't do that, something like that, Like it's sometimes even women also, internalize that, and then like I said to the men, you're a man, don't do like that. So it become a special burden. I think like it also prevent them if they got bullied or become the victim of the violent act, they get reluctant to report. Like in the case in UGM also like that, yeah. When we talk about the sexual violence, when the victims are actually the male students, they said that they think and need more times to decide that I should report it to the UGM, because like that obstacles that actually created by the patriarchal society. And I think we should against that kind of mindset, because everybody should be equal as a human. So equality and humanity, I think that's very important.
Yeah, I continue the response of Ibu Ratna that what she already mentioned about hegemonic masculinities, yeah. That man should be top of the top, should be the one who is very powerful, very strong. You cannot cry, etc. And it's dangerous, because it's in many research it shows also that this kind of attitude create also violence. because you cannot do, you cannot cry, you cannot show your weakness, and it will explode as becoming an energy of violence. And also we see sexual violence is related to mental health. And men, for instance, they tend not to express or to tell, not to fill the survey, etc., related to a mental health problem. And this is also dangerous, because they think I am very strong. M.Si and Universitas Gadjah Mada, the ones who fill the survey related to mental health, for instance, are mostly women. And oh, there are a lot of women, having problem, but it's better for us to see in the first place that with a lot of, for instance, girls having problem, then not seeing them at all. It's becoming more dangerous, because then they become alone, they become lonely, and it's becoming another problem, like suicide attempt, etc. If you see, there are also a lot of men, because of their resistance to say that I have problem. I don't want to tell because I'm strong. So it is quite dangerous, for the case of sexual violence and also for the case of mental health. These two things are, I think, interrelated.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Bu Mary, you have Mrs. Mary, sorry, you have a comment, an answer?
Yes, I totally agree with this, and I think it is important to understand that, as you were saying, patriarchy should be understood as a system of domination, a system of power that imposes social roles and social structures, and this also impacts men, even if the women are the one who are disadvantaged in this system. And that's why I think systemic solutions are important, and not only the target of men in the society, but really systemic solution and systemic policies, such as prevention and positive actions, and to think about this issue at a collective level, and in order to target the system and not only the individuals.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Let's move to the next question. I think here.
Merci. So as you might remember, Wening, Prof, I've been a student in UGM in 2020, and actually I've been witnessing the kind of construction of very toxic relations between teacher and some girls, some students. But I was online, right? And I had no clue that there was someone I could talk about this at UGM, because I've never got any information about this. And well, there was one teacher who was always calling the students like Sayang, and then he organized a game, and he just published a book, and he organized kind of game so that some students can win a book. Then he gave them an appointment in a cafe, and I was like, what should I do? Because it's totally insane, right? And but the girl is not my daughter. The teacher is not. I really didn't know how to react. So this is really a very concrete example, but I really realized that something wrong was going on, but still I didn't know what to do. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so this is also for information for all of you, in case there's something you see or yourself, become victims of this kind of attitude. So there is a Satgas, Satuan Tugas. Satuan Tugas is task force of Universitas Gadjah Mada, and it's there since establishment of this regulation in 2020, since 2020, and it's working effectively in 2021. So everyone can report to this task force, and it's online. You can find this also online. And the team, there are 7 people, and 4 of them are students. So students becoming the majority of this team, because most of the victims are women, are students. Most of the victims are students. So 4 students and 2 lecturers and 1 staff. They work very hard. Now, as I mentioned, there are now 80 cases since this 2020. And UGM now in Indonesia is becoming one of the most leading institution in solving this kind of problem, and a student can report of any kind of sexual violence act. Yeah. Not only physical but also virtual or physical, using language, etc. They report now to this thing. Yeah. If students are, really don't know how to do, the faculty also, they have you can usually in the vice dean of academics in every faculty.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sure.
Also, for the information, says there are hotline actually for to report any case that you find surrounding you related to sexual violence. There are also the website from the task force, and also the social media. You can also report. There are many channels to use. You can send email or maybe send WhatsApp group. I think there is also a number. So we try to provide any channels that you can use. So anytime you see, not only it happened to you, but also maybe happen to your friends surrounding, then you can just report to the task force. Thank you.
And my question is, I will have a other question. Are there the same kind of task force in other big universities all over Indonesia, or is it very specific to UGM? Okay.
It's all over Indonesia.
All
because
over Indonesia.
This follow the regulation of the state.
Okay, okay.
So like UGM created a regulation, and then 1 year later, state create this regulation, and there are also mechanisms follow this regulation. The first one is creating this task force. Okay. So every university must have task force, otherwise they will be closed by the government.
And you also can be anonymous if you do not want to reveal your identity to report that.
Okay, thank you. Another question maybe in the audience? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to see you again. They are my lectures. They were my lectures before in Gadjah University. Maybe I have some questions, but before I ask, maybe I share maybe the cases in Korea. If I have been in Indonesia for 13 years, and if I compare the environment, especially the comments on the social media, this kind of digital sexual violences, especially the comments are absolutely different. It's mostly the men comments really directly about the sexual things. However, in Korea nowadays, it's pretty clean because there is a new culture that if the victim screenshot and send to police office, that guy 100% will be called by policemen and will be punished. Maximal 3 years jail or maximal $25,000. And there was a huge scandal of the digital sexual violence. That's an Nth scandal, and it was massive sexual violences throughout the Telegram. And the guy who started that, he got the punishment for 42 years jail. So, and these kind of things are spreaded throughout the media, mass media or social media. So lots of, especially men, aware about this kind of a problem. Then the kind of efforts, not only from the Korean government, but also the society movement, changed the digital culture, I think. But if I compare, as I said, if I compare with the Indonesian case, it's still there is a huge gap. So Wening said the law usually doesn't apply. It's my question: is there a real case that how this kind of problem, or is it solved until the end? So, especially in our campus, is there a case that a guy who did some kind of things and what happened? How it is finished? That's my first question. And the second question is to all speakers. Now the paradigm has been changed. Now is the AI paradigm. So nowadays, Korea also there are lots of new discourses about the AI media. So to aware us, it is very important this kind of platform to communicate. To aware us, what do you think about how this kind of a new digital AI sexual violence will be appeared, and what kind of a form? That's my first question. And the second question is how scholars to see these kind of things about the reflection, how they reflect about this kind of massive development of new media until AI. Is there some kind of a critical reflection, like kind of back to return to analog paradigm or that kind of things? Thank you.
Yeah. So I will answer the question about the implementation, of the law at campus. What I know is in Universitas Gadjah Mada, because I'm involved, especially with Ibu Ratna, Ibu Sriyanti Ediono, Ibu Yayi Sri Prabandari. So we are all strong women. Because why? Because it's not easy. The procedure is very strict, and there are so many interventions. But we strict on the result. For instance, in terms of choosing the team, we must be very careful, because the team sometimes doesn't really know about gender perspective, or they pretend they know about gender perspective, but in reality, they make women become the second victims because of the questions, during the interview, etc. So it's very tough, in solving solving this problem. What we have to do, what kind of sanction, what kind of psychological counseling that the victim and also the perpetrators to have to do. We have a very strict agenda about that, and it should be implemented according to what belief in the team. And as I mentioned before, there are so many interventions, because the one who do it sometimes is a child of a very important person in Jakarta. and then calm, something like that. In Indonesia it's common, yeah. Oh, it's just like that. It's not just like that, yeah. Your child is using it. One time, even I got angry with the parent and asked him to come, and something like that, yeah. I will educate the parents also, something like that. So, it's very hard, it's very, very tough, and sometimes very dangerous. Yeah, very dangerous. So, threat also. Sometimes they threat us as the team. Yeah, one time there is a threat from someone whose father is very important person. Yeah, in one of the region in Yogyakarta, something like that. Yeah, so we must work very hard. We have also other team. Yeah, like SKK. Yeah, sometimes the victim also was threatened. Yeah, by the perpetrators. So we have to hide them in one place that only us know where she is or where he is. Something like that, yeah. So we must be very, very committed, and we must be very brave, or otherwise they will interfere. Yeah.
Okay, so we are very grateful to have strong women like Wening, because there was a general who really afraid when he realized that, oh, this is the person that I should face. It okay. So I would like to answer the second question related to the artificial intelligence technology. You asked about the real case that happened related to the sexual violence.
And also about the AI paradigm.
Oh, the AI paradigm. Yeah, regarding the case of the artificial intelligence, I've ever read news about the case in a university in which the student get angry to the lecturer because he gave him a very low grade, and then he generated, the image, the naked image of the lecturer with the AI technology. So it has become a big concern, actually, become a big discourse related to that, how we have to use the AI technology in campus, because not only regarding to the academic honesty, but also there is also the sexual violence like that. But related to the AI paradigm, I think you have to participate in our workshop when all media as the new media, because I think when there is a new media come to our society, there always an anxiety, and there is always like people become very get scared what happened to our society, because that can weakening our mind, and then weakening our skill that we already learned from the society, something like that. But then we can adapt, actually. Yeah, there is an adaptation. But related to the AI, I think we are in the process to think and also discuss about the paradigm regarding the AI. So don't worry with the AI. We just discuss about it, right? About the AI, how we can take the advantage of it. But we also maybe have to be careful with the AI technology.
Marie, maybe a question about the AI. I think in Europe soon there will be new, Europe will be the first region to implement new regulations regarding AI. So maybe you can tell us about it and how it can help, in fighting against gender-based sexual violence.
I heard about the newer regulation, but actually I don't know much about AI subject.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Sorry, Mary, do we have time for last question? I know we are supposed to leave at 5:30, but at 11:30 for you. But do we have time for one last question? Or is it okay for you? Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I have time.
Okay. So we have time for one last question, maybe? No? No question? So it means that our speakers have been very comprehensive, so thank you so much. I think we can give them a big round of applause. So thanks to our three speakers, for the kind participation. Mrs. Marie Nastorg, Dr. Wening Udasmoro, and Ibu Ratna Noviani. Thank you. We are very glad to have you today with us for this roundtable discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this event with us today. Now I invite you all to join us on the terrace of the Institut Français for snacks and drinks. And please stay with us for the 2 next events of the day. In a few minutes, we will officially open the exhibition about women in sports, entitled Les L des Jeux. At 6 p.m. we will screen the documentary film The Squad about the women's professional football team of Olympique Lyonnais. So please stay with us. And if you want to be updated about the regular events organized at Institut Français, please follow us on social networks. Thank you so much.